Good morning, students. Let's continue with the integration testing. So in the last lecture, we have discussed about the decomposition based integration techniques, which was divided into two, the incremental and non-incremental, while incremental was divided into two again, the top down and the bottom up, and the third one that was sandwiched, that is practically used. Right now, continuing with the second method of integration testing, that is call graph based integration. So it is always assumed that integration testing is to check the structural errors, but actually we need to check all types of errors. So if we want to detect the behavioral errors we mean is at the runtime when say module is being called by some module, right, to perform any function, then also we need to check whether there is any interface errors or not. So that is achieved with the help of a call graph. So what do you mean by a call graph? A call graph is a directed graph wherein the nodes are either the modules or the units, and a directed edge from one module to another means one module, it means, right. So just look at the example. So a call graph, this is a directed call graph where we have the nodes which are representing the modules or the units, while these edges are simply like one module is calling second module, right? Or this one module calls this 5 module. In turn, 5 calls 6, 7 and 8 module. So this represents the relationship. So this is how we make a call graph. Now another thing which is required during this call graph based integration testing is a adjacency matrix. This matrix is prepared in correspondence to this directed graph or a call graph. Let's see an example of a hypothetical program. Right, this is a call graph which is being made for that, and the corresponding adjacency matrix is being prepared here. So we have written 1 2 3 4, like we have 20 nodes, so we have written 20. These are 20 in number, so 20 this side and 20 this side. Now we have to mark which has a direct relationship, right? Say one module invokes second module, right? Let's see from this example. One invokes or calls 2, 3, 4 and 5 directly along with the 10 and 11. 1, okay, no, directly. It calls 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 and 11. So we mark a cross here. After that, second, it's a sync node. It's not calling anyone. 3, nobody. 4, nobody. But yes, 5 calls or invokes 6, 7 and 8. So 5 calls 6, 7 and 8. So we mark a cross here. Then 6 is in sync node. Sync node matlab termination node. 7, it calls nobody. Now 8 calls 9 and 16. 8 calls 9 and 16. So this is how we are going to prepare this adjacency matrix according to this, right? Now what is concluded from here? What does this represents actually? The call graph shown in the figure can be used as a basis for integration testing. Okay, fine. The idea behind using a call graph for integration testing is to avoid the effort made in developing the stubs and the drivers. So we know that the previous method that we have done, that is decomposition based, we were supposed to prepare the stubs and the drivers. That varies according to the method that is being selected, but yes, extra effort and time was required in making the stubs and drivers, and even the space was required. So this is an alternative to this. We can reduce the effort because since we are not supposed to develop these stubs and drivers directly, a call graph can be used for identifying the test sessions. Now how it is being identified? So there are two methods of call graph based integration testing. Is the first one is a pairwise integration and second is a neighborhood integration. So what do you mean by a pairwise integration? Pairwise integration, what is a pair? Pair we mean is one pair of calling and called module. That means say 1 and 10, this is one pair. This module is calling 10th module, or 10th is being called by one module. So this makes one pair, the calling and the called one. Similarly, 1 and 11, this is the calling and this is the called one. So we will identify all the pairs present in this call graph. So it is normally equivalent to the number of edges actually. One edge, so one pair, another edge, another pair, third edge, third pair, fourth edge. So the number of edge is corresponding to the number of pairs here. So altogether, since you have 20 nodes in here, so the number of edges are 19 here. If you go on counting this, these are 19. So the number of test sessions required will be simply 19, right? So this is how we can perform the testing. These many test cases needs to be developed and we have to perform the testing. So concluding this, the resulting set will be the total test session which will be equal to the sum of all the edges in the call graph simply. So it's a simple method pairwise. Just make a call graph, identify all the calling in the call pairs and count them. Ultimately that is equivalent to the number of test sessions. Coming up to the next one, that is a neighborhood integration. Now we know that when we are counting the total number of edges, that means the number of test cases required are more, number of edges are more, so test cases will be more. So this is an you can say a method which is going to reduce that number of test sessions. How? Instead of taking all the called and the calling pairs, what we do is we only consider the neighborhoods of a node. Neighborhood means the one which is one edge away, right? Let's assume the graph is here, neighborhood. The neighborhood and 1 will be this, who are directly connected to 1, right? These are neighborhood. That includes both the predecessor as well as the successor node. The neighborhood of a node thus can be defined as a set of nodes that are one edge away from the given node. So we won't be considering all the edges, only those edges which are one step away, right? The neighborhoods of each node in the given call graph is represented in the table. So we can see first was the initial or the source node, so there was no predecessor to it, while successors are many, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 and 11, right? Let's see. 1 is connected to, predecessor is none, this is the starting node, while successors are 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 and 11. So this is how we prepare this table. For the fifth node, fifth is getting invoked by 1, fifth is getting invoked by 1, so this is a predecessor, while successors are 6, 7, 8, direct linked ones, right? 6, 7, 8. So this is how we prepare this neighborhood table. So now how many test sessions are required according to this method? So the number of test sessions required are, its neighborhood is calculated as nodes minus sync node. So total nodes are 20. Sync nodes are the terminal nodes. Terminal nodes means these, which are ending here, right? There is no one after this. So we have 10. So altogether 20 minus 10 is 10. So we altogether require 10 test sessions only. That was 19 in the pairwise integration. So the number of test cases can be reduced here. So this is what neighborhood method says. Now the third method of integration testing is a path-based integration testing. So what do you mean by a path-based? See, in a call graph, when a module or a unit executes, some path of the source instruction is also executed. And it may be possible that in that path execution, there may be a call to another unit. For example, what does it mean? It means, say this is one of the modules, right? And these are the instruction nodes. We are, okay, fine, we are calling them one by one. But there might be a possibility that if you are following a particular path and it might take to some other path also, that means there is a function call. Say here is a function call. This is a calculator, this is a add functionality. So the definition of add is given in the function definition somewhere else. Likewise, there is something which calls another module, right? So this is called as a path, right? So if this case happens, right, so then we have to ultimately check all these paths, because integration error might be present there also, right? So at that point, the control is transferred from the calling unit to the called unit. Okay, fine. This passing of control from one unit to another unit is necessary for integration testing. Also, there should be information within the module regarding instructions that call the module or return to the module. So when we are calling a module, we'll be returning also. So for integration testing, that information is required. Now, this testing can be done with the help of a path-based integration testing. So prior to starting with this path-based integration techniques, we must know few terms relevant to it, which will be required. A source node, everyone is known to what is a source node, from where the execution starts, right? Sync node, where the execution ends or terminates. Module execution path, it is a path consisting of a set of executable statements within a module, like in a flow graph. So module execution path is within a module. This is one of the path. This is another path. So within a module, that is known as module execution path. What is a message? When the control from one unit is transferred to the another unit, then the programming language mechanism used to do this is known as a message. So from one unit to another unit, we are passing some parameters here, right? So we are calling those parameters as message. What is path? It is a path consisting of MEPs, that is module execution path, and a message, right? So all the MEPs, the transferring control, and the messages are a part of a path. So path will be all the MEP, module execution path, in the you can say in a unit, and the messages which are being transferred from one unit to another. All together makes an path. Say from here, 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 here. So this will be the path. Now what is path graph? Path graph is an extended flow graph where nodes are MEPs and edges are messages, right? A bit different. See, this is an MEP graph where this represents what? MEP, right? Module execution path, while an edge represents the we said the edge represents a message, right? So whenever a message is passed between any two MEPs, then we go on making an edge, else we never make an edge. See, no edge is represented here because transfer was not going from this module MEP A1 to MEP A2, right? But yes, there was a direct connection. A message was getting transferred here, so we made an edge. We made an edge, but while here there is no edge. Now see how this is being developed, right? Now take an example. This is one of the example, right? To understand this example, we must know this table, right? For unit A, the source nodes are assumed to be 1 and 4. 1 and 4 is the source node, while sync node is 3 and 5. 3 and 5 is a sync node. So 1 and 4 source node, 3 and 5 sync node. So now we have to identify the module execution path, right? So module execution path will be path from starting node to the end node. Now we have two source node and two sync nodes, right? So one path is source is 1, 5 is your sync node. One path is 1, 2, 5. Let's see. So first path is 1, 2, 5, right? Then second path is 1 and 3. 1 and 3, since 1 was a source node while 3 was a sync node. Let's see, 1 and 3. Similarly, the third MEP is 4 and 5. We know fourth was as source node, fifth was a sync node. From the diagram, fourth is a source node, fifth is a sync node. So this is how we have identified three MEPs here. One is this, second is this, and third is this, right? Similarly, we will be identifying the MEPs in the unit B also. In the unit B, source nodes are 1 and 5 while sync node is 4 and 6. So when you go on analyzing it, you'll find the first part is from 1 to 4, that is 1, 2 and 4. 1, 2 and 4, right? The second one is B2, that is 5 and 6. 5 is your source node, sync node is 6. So there is a direct connection between 5 and 6. And the third one is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. right? Starting from 1 till 6. Now there is a problem here. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 5 and 6. 1, 2, 3, 5 and 6. So 4 is a misprint here, right? Just erase it. So this is how we'll identify the path. In the unit C, there is just one source and one sink node. So we have two possible paths here. 1 and 5. One path is 1, 2, 4 and 5. Second path is 1, 3, 4 and 5. 1, 2, 4 and 5, 1, 3, 4 and 5. So first of all, identify these MAPs by identifying the source and the sink nodes. Once this is developed, now we have to make an MEP graph. So this MEP graph is what we will be taking the MEPs, right? And we'll see according to this, right? MEPs are the path that we have identified. 3 paths were present in this, 3 paths were present in this, and 3 paths were present in this. Now we have to check which one calls this. There is a call here. There is a call here between the different units, right? So accordingly, we will be making MEP A1. It has no direct relationship. See from this diagram. 1, 2 and 5 is MEP1. Is it directly calling any, this path is calling some other, like you can say the path in unit B? No, it has no direct link. That is why there is no edge drawn here. No message passing is taking place here. While if I consider MEP A2, so what was A2? 1 and 3. 1 and 3. Yes, it is calling this path, right? So we will make an edge here. Similarly, it is calling which path? MEB1. MEB1, that is 1, 2 and 4. This is calling 1, 2 and 4, right? So we have drawn here MEB1. So you have to place these in such a way the direct relationship. So it's not in sequence. A1, A2, A3 is placed here, right? Because directly this no one is calling it. But in the reverse order, this was calling A3. So you have to place it in such a way and make the proper edges. So this is all about your MEP graph that is required for path-based testing. So thank you for today.